is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. In today's episode, we're going to be doing 3 cold weather crop tips that you probably don't know. Let's go. So the first tip that I want to give you guys is with your leafy greens. I see so many gardeners pulling out leafy greens in the fall because they think that the gardening season is over. If you're doing that, you're missing out on one of the best seasons to be growing and eating leafy greens. You see, things like this kale, it's been through a lot. It's seen a lot. We've grown it from the spring through the summer into fall, now basically into winter. And so it's been under a lot, but it's still thriving, especially if you're taking care of your soil and it's growing, it's growing healthy and things are still progressing. I mean, all this new growth means it's still growing. So I don't want to pull this out. The other reason why I don't want to pull it out, not just because it's not dead yet, but because it actually gets sweeter. So when it comes to leafy greens, things like kale, Swiss chard, even broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, what you'll notice is that if you come out on a really cold day, we actually had a super cold day, and you'll notice that there's some ice that's actually frozen on the leaves themselves. So we're well below freezing, but these plants are still surviving. And how is that? Well, on a cellular level, these plants are trading sugars from the roots that the plant created through photosynthesis throughout the summer. It is trading sugars down in the roots for water in the leaves. And why is that? Why is it doing that? When water is in the leaves, it actually fills up the cell of the leaf. These plant cells are somewhat elastic, but they're not like completely elastic, right? They only have so much stretchability. It's like a water balloon. You can fill up a water balloon so far before it pops. And all this is doing is basically taking some of that water out and replacing it with sugar, which has a much lower freezing point. If you take sugar water and regular water, what you'll find is that sugar water will freeze at right around 21 to 22 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas regular water will freeze at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is what gives these plants their protection so that they can survive basically totally unprotected outside in your garden, and they just kind of duke out the cold. And also, like I said, makes them a whole lot sweeter. So you gotta give it a shot. It's really sweet. All right, now the second cold weather crop tip is to not cut your asparagus tops in the winter. So when it comes to your asparagus, not cutting the tops in the winter is actually more a protection against the roots than it is an aesthetic thing. I know a lot of gardeners like to kind of clean up their garden, and I do too, especially when it's wintertime. We like to come through, and anything that's dead or dying or won't produce in the spring, we like to pull it out so it looks fresh. But when it comes to these asparagus tops, they actually serve a purpose, and that purpose is to protect the roots down below. What you'll notice is if you come through and you just chop off these tops, make your garden look nice and pretty, when it snows, that snow is going to fall directly on the soil, and it's going to not have as much protection as had you left the tops intact. Because what will happen is if you leave the tops intact and it snows, the snow will fall on the tops first. It'll pile up around the plant. It'll actually make a little bit of like a little mini igloo around the root system. And that little mini igloo will keep the soil just that much warmer, which will help them to not only come out of dormancy faster, but protect them and basically shield them from any really severe cold weather that you might have. And so whether they're small like this and newly planted, or they're 10, 15 years old, I just make a practice of cleaning up my asparagus in the spring because you're only going to have a benefit from doing that. All right, and the third and final cold weather crop tip that I got for you guys is actually making a DIY root cellar using the soil in your garden, the root crops that you're already growing, and leaves. Super simple. I'll show you how. All you have to do is, preferably in early season before the soil is frozen completely. It helps if the soil's thawed already, because what you want to do is you want to lock in the soil temperature by insulating it with leaves. So all we're going to do is we're going to take some leaves, which is a free resource in the fall, and we're simply going to cover your root crops. Now this works with things like beets, carrots, parsnips, rutabagas. Any root crop can be covered. You can even do this with things like potatoes. And what happens is when you put these leaves on in a really super thick layer, I do typically 5 to 7 inches, sometimes even more than that, it actually locks in the thawed soil. It locks in the temperature so that the soil has a harder time to freeze if it ever even freezes. And what this will do is it'll protect your root crops. That way you don't have to pull them up and take them indoors. You don't have to harvest them and take them to a root cellar, because how many people have a root cellar? I don't have one. My parents had one growing up, but I don't have one. And so you can actually turn a raised bed into a root cellar, and you can harvest when you need it. And that's the other thing I really love about this, is the fact that if I want to harvest, let's say 3 or 4 beets, I'm simply gonna come over here, I'm gonna uncover the leaves in the middle of winter. There's probably gonna be snow on top of them and everything. I'm gonna uncover them. I'm gonna find the beets I want. I'm simply gonna harvest my beets. And what's great is the fact that they will be protected and fresh. They won't be soft and mushy. If they get frozen, they will get soft and mushy. And that's why you wanna do this before your soil freezes. We planted these in basically late summer, and they are absolutely massive now. And so it just goes to show you can grow, fall beets and stuff like that. We have videos on how to do that, but these beets are absolutely beautiful. And now the next thing you have to do is, after you harvest and you want to protect the rest of them and you're done, simply move the leaves back, and it's that simple. Any beets that have been left in the ground are gonna stay buried until you need them at a later time. So I hope you guys enjoyed these 3 super easy cold weather crop tips. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. We'll catch you guys later. See ya. Bye.